Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I hope I'm going live about now. I apologize for the small, 10-day hiatus. There honestly wasn't that much that I wanted to report on right as it was happening. There have been some interesting news over the last week, and we will be covering a lot of that today. But I just thought it would be nicer to combine all of that in one video. I would have done one last Friday, but my internet and my audio quality was shite. So yeah, I decided to just do it as nicely as possible now that I'm back home, now that I have more time for you guys, now that we are way closer to the announcements of the iPhone 16, the 16 Pro, the Apple Watch Series 10, the Ultra 3, and next generation AirPods. Yes, I already kind of spoiled some of the news that we were going to discuss today, but we are approaching, of course, September very, very rapidly. And in September, we are getting a keynote where Apple will introduce to us the next generation of iPhone, Apple Watch, AirPods. And beyond September, we should expect M4 Max, which will obviously get the M4 that is inside the current iPad Pro. But we might also see chips like the M4 Pro, M4 Max, and potentially more. So a lot to get excited about. We'll have to kill a few days and weeks until those events actually happen. And obviously, once the iPhone is shown, there will be reviews and stuff like that that we can focus on. There will be the official release of iOS 18, and we'll be getting closer to iOS 18.1, which will bring Apple Intelligence. Unfortunately, not to me in Europe, but still to regions like the United States. So there will be a lot more to talk about in September and of course October and hopefully November than it was in July and August. June is of course interesting because of WWDC, but since the betas really didn't allow me to test Apple Intelligence, I was pretty limited in my ability to give you very insightful observations of iOS 18. That being said, that's about it for the intro. I hope you guys feel free to join, feel free to chat as always. I highly encourage you to, if you enjoy the content, if you like this channel, to please subscribe, like the video, share it out to anybody who you think might enjoy it. And of course, keep commenting live. I love me a lively live chat. I love interacting with you guys. Let me know what you agree with, what you disagree with. Maybe you have some suggestions on what we should cover, especially now that we'll have a little bit more time going forward. And beyond that, if you want to support this channel directly, there is of course the opportunity to send small donations in the form of super chats or super stickers right here while I'm live. You can become channel members right here on YouTube, or you can become Patreon supporters, which of course is all great. Every direct support is appreciated, but so is just if you watch the videos and leave a like. I love you all guys here. So what are we talking about today? Well, of course, we have talked about the iPhone 16, more precisely the iPhone 16 family, and to be actually more precisely, to me, the most exciting one was always going to be the 16 Pro Max. I'm most likely going to keep my 15 Pro Max, but if there was any model this year that could attract me to do once again a year-to-year upgrade, that of course would be the 16 Pro Max with the largest battery, the largest screen, and so on. But of course, the entire family of iPhones are going to be upgraded. So when are we supposedly getting those announcements? Well, according to Apple Jesus Mark Gurman, speaking through Bloomberg, we should be expecting a presentation on September 10th and a potential release date, so actually going on sale on September 20th. If there will be small differences between individual models, or if supply of course will very much be the deciding factor, and if you can actually get your wish iPhone on September 20th, of course remains to be seen, but that is roughly what we should expect. That is not too surprising given how Apple usually targets the second week of September anyway, and then usually a week and a half later the devices start to go on sale. So that about aligns with what many people have expected. What Mark Gurman specified also is that we should be expecting the next generation of Apple Watch. In this case, we're talking the Apple Watch Series 10, and we're talking new AirPods. So what exactly did he say? While I missed it, I wanted to cover this, but I didn't. Now, we will be going a little later into the actual specifications that we expect for the new iPhones, because that is obviously a much larger topic than just briefly mentioning the individual products that are going to be announced. For the Apple Watch Series 10, we are likely getting a 49 millimeter models. Maybe the smallest version actually goes away, so we are left with a family of 45 and 49 millimeter Apple Watches. Maybe the Apple Watch SE then just becomes the de facto smallest and cheapest Apple Watch. And the Apple Watch Ultra might actually get an even larger screen inside its 49 millimeter chassis by slimming down the bezel. Anybody who knows and has like an Apple Watch Ultra knows that the bezels, they're actually pretty thick comparatively to what one might expect, but that is also why it's kind of very durable. And Benveni joins the chat, a longtime supporter of the channel, saying, what AI feature do you think will be exclusive for the iPhone 16 Pro? I bet most will be on the camera, even more with the capture button. Yeah, my belief would be that basically everything that kind of happens like in an app, if that makes sense, would be available across like the A17 Pro chip, so on the iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max. And everything that sort of happens live, and you said that very correctly, that would be my main tip, would be inside the camera, like preview, right? Which I don't really consider like a standalone app. If there's any features that where Apple will be like, oh, A18 Pro has like more memory bandwidth, it has its faster AI engine, it is more efficient. That way we can put AI effects directly into your camera preview. I can kind of see that happening, but across the board, I honestly don't think Apple has any necessity to artificially limit like AI features. It's not like the vast majority of people own an iPhone 15 Pro or 15 Pro Max. Like even if you just take iPhones that have like dynamic island, right, you're left with the iPhone 15 and the 14 Pro. Those devices don't support don't support Apple Intelligence. If you think of notch devices, there is no device that supports Apple Intelligence. If you think of home button devices, even like DSE, right? We don't have to go that far back. None of them support Apple Intelligence. So I think Apple will have a lot of demand from consumers to get an Apple Intelligence supporting phone, even if they still give all the features to the 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max. Don't forget, Apple doesn't sell the previous generation Pro models alongside newer iPhones, right? So it might actually be that we have a lineup consisting like iPhone 14, iPhone 15, iPhone 16, and iPhone 16 Pro, or maybe like get rid of the 14 and there will be like an SE model there, right? So that to me makes way more sense than Apple just artificially trying to cut down individual features of Apple Intelligence. I also don't think that Apple, I know, of course, as every company, they do cut features from like older models. But given that Apple Intelligence was very much introduced and shown on the iPhone 15 Pro, I don't think that the first generation of AI features will be that limited. Like Apple will immediately start cutting features from the 15 Pro series. I think that both 15 Pro and 16 Pro might start losing out on features that could be shown on the 17 Pro, because that one is likely getting 12 gigs of RAM. And if Apple dramatically changes the size of the specific large language model running on those devices, then there is a good chance that Apple will have a big incentive to say, well, the 17 Pro might not be the most exciting upgrade ever, but it does give you even more Apple Intelligence. And if somebody whines about it, well, there is the explanation with more RAM for that. So we've covered very briefly the Apple Watch, of course. For the AirPods, unfortunately for me, there is no sign of next gen AirPods Pro 3. So we are talking about fourth generation, quote unquote, regular AirPods, and supposedly those will come in two sub version models, like one that is cheaper, one's a little bit more expensive. So it would basically replace both the cheap second generation AirPods that are still being sold and the third generation AirPods. And very likely that model that would exist like between the cheaper AirPods 4 and then, of course, the more expensive AirPods Pro, that one would also get noise cancellation. So previously, noise cancellation was exclusive to the AirPods Pro and AirPods Max, and supposedly now we would get a quote unquote cheap model of AirPods, cheap being probably above 160 and probably below $200 of AirPods that still give you noise cancellation. Benveni, you're saying you think Google locks screenshot app and weather app for the Pixel 9 Pro or for the entire Pixel 9 lineup. Yeah, I still haven't heard like clear confirmation. Like I've seen people like sideload those applications, but yeah, supposedly the justification on a very basic level is that Google is like doing a lot of AI stuff, especially in the screenshot app. But like a lot in the screenshot app is like very basic, like text recognition and things like that. It's basically like a better screenshot manager that they could have easily integrated into the main Photos app anyway. So I was very confused by the need for a separate app. And then for the weather app, I have no idea what they're doing, honestly. Like this, for one, I don't think it looks particularly good, but also I just don't think it's very exciting to be talking about weather apps in 2024 that might be like device exclusive. I can see a weather app being like nicely upgraded, looks pretty, has new animation. We partnered with new companies to give you like even more like correct data predictions. We optimized it for this specific processor, so it's more efficient. And maybe like the latest features, like the newest animations, will be cut off on like older devices. That the way Apple handled a bigger Apple their weather app redesign a couple of years ago, right? That to me makes sense. But this idea is like, oh, here are like two apps. One is like a subsection of the Photos app, but like a little bit more AI focused, and one is literally a weather app, and we will like not even fully tell you if those are fully exclusive or like timed exclusive, because don't forget, sometimes Android companies do give you newer features to older devices down the road, especially if there's like a lot of consumer backlash. I just don't know what Google is honestly doing. Like the Pixel 9 is very confusing because it's a decently built device, but it's very much held back in a lot of ways by the Tensor G4, and then in just other ways it's just not exciting pricing wise in comparison to other Android alternatives. I guess if you compare it to the S24 Ultra, but the S24 Ultra, you are not buying it an MSRP if you are buying it half a year after launch. You're likely buying it for below $1,000 at this point. So having a 1099 Pixel 9 Pro XL that starts with 128 gigabytes of storage, so that they can still show off and say like, oh, 16 gigs of RAM, which is a topic we will be mentioning today. That is just a little weird to me. Like it looks unfocused, and I think it's like not offering 256 gigabytes there, I think was a big mistake. I think they just hope that everyone just buys the 1199 model, or during the early sales period they will give you discounts and sell you the 256 gigabyte model at 1099. But I always hated those like first come first served get a discount things, because that really incentivizes, in my opinion, bad buying habits. Like if an enthusiast wants to buy a device day one with potential bugs, it being slightly overpriced, right? That's up to the enthusiasts. Enthusiasts are a substantial part of the market, and they encourage companies to make a little bit more profit. That's all fine and good. But then the regular consumer buying a device 3 months later, in my opinion, is supposed to get a better deal because he or she waited a little bit. And Samsung and Google are sort of trying to turn that on its head by saying, no, 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 you have to come first to get our best deal. Maybe we'll give you like $100 discount 3 months later, but it's not guaranteed. And yeah, I just don't like that very much. But yeah, that's about it for the Pixel 9 Pro. We might talk about the Tensor G4 either in this video or in subsequent videos if basically the need strikes us, right? So we talked about the Apple Watch, of course, between the Series 10 and the next gen Apple Watch Ultra. We talked about the AirPods, which would be like two models of AirPods 4, one cheaper, one more expensive with noise cancellation, replacing both cheaper AirPods 2 and AirPods 3 in the current lineup, but unfortunately no replacement for AirPods Pro 2. And we still don't know if AirPods Max are getting an upgrade anytime soon, which is obviously insane because they're several years old at this point. They are running on Lightning. Granted, so are the cheaper AirPods, but at least we know those are getting USB-C upgrades. While with AirPods Max, we just have no idea what is happening anytime soon to them. We've had like that rumor of like at this point, like 1.5 years ago or something like that, that said we would be getting like a color refresh. That never happened. So whatever is going on with AirPods Max, we might never find out at this point. Yeah, so this is basically what you should expect at this September event. If there is, of course, if there are, of course, M4 Max to still come this year, don't expect them at this event. It would just be confusing. It would be way too cramped. So it's very likely if we get M4 Max this year, which it seems very likely, it would happen at an October or at worst like a November release. It can all happen. We had like a Halloween event last year, so the Scary Fast one. So who knows? It could be like very late October, maybe even early November. Depends probably on how much Apple can sell out of existing M3 Mac inventory, how quickly they can build up supply for M4 Max. So those small details of like a couple of weeks, they can always vary. We've had like rumors about the M4 iPad Pro initially being announced at like April or even March. Then it was like May or June. So those gaps can always happen. But with the iPhone, it seems like everything is going relatively swimmingly. So expect it to be announced on September 10th and for it to go on sale on September 20th. And we've covered the quote unquote smaller releases, which would be a new Apple Watch Series 10 and new AirPods 4. But of course, let's get to the main attraction of the show, the iPhone 16 family, and I think most excitingly, the iPhone 16 Pro. Now, there will be features that will overlap between the 16 and 16 Pro. Most importantly, the processor, like the amount of memory it has. Some cameras, like the front camera, might be identical between them. But I would still expect that, or even more so than maybe in previous years, that there will be a large technological gap between the Pro and the regular model. It's just that the previous differentiation that we had when it comes to processors, like for example, the iPhone 15 Pro runs on the A17 Pro chip, while the iPhone 15 runs on the A16 chip, that differentiation mostly goes away. Probably not entirely. Apple might call the iPhone 16 chip A18 and the iPhone 16 Pro chip the A18 Pro, but those will be much smaller differences than, of course, course, than what we had between the A17 Pro on the 15 Pro iPhones versus the A16 on the iPhone 15. And Jamie Ibrahim, another long-term supporter of this channel, joining the chat saying, Apple Insider said a few days ago that A18 is codenamed 2Pi and 8 is 18 Pro is Tahiti, which suggests that they're separate chips. Does it have to mean that they're different dies? Is my question. Would different bins ever justify different code names? Because it would be interesting if we could have like a situation like the Snapdragon 8S Gen 3, right? Which is a Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, but the S inside basically means it's like dramatically smaller and less powerful in many ways. It could be, I'm not sure. We obviously have had some success on this channel trying to deducing what kind of chip might come to a next generation product, famously for the M4 iPad Pro by using, in that case, not code names, but like numbers. But I wouldn't be entirely shocked by it. I guess I would be more surprised because by this point we have kind of gotten so used to that rumor that I would be like, oh, really? But then after thinking about it, I would be, oh, really? Jamie, you're saying, I believe the last time an A-series chip had two different code names was the A9, which had a TSMC and Samsung version. That is correct. Between 16 and 14 nanometer different processing nodes, the A9 was kind of infamous for people potentially even worrying, oh, what specific model of the A9 am I getting? Let me think. A10, a uniform, A11 as well, A12 most certainly. Yeah, when we think about the A15, right, which was most notably divided between like a 4-core GPU version and a 5-core GPU version, right? That didn't have special code names, right? Because they were the same die, they were definitely treated the same, while the A9, by definition, being fabricated on different process nodes between Samsung and TSMC foundries, deserve different names. Yeah, that would be very interesting. It could be very small things, in honesty, like maybe the A18 ends up being like a rebranded A17 Pro, and Apple just activates what uses whatever N3B production they have had access to, and that becomes the regular A18 for the next year to come. And then the A18 Pro is a really new chip on N3E from TSMC. But who knows, right? Again, we haven't actually heard any specific rumors in that regard. I remember a while ago reading that A17 Pro would be like reused in the iPhone 16, but at that point people were saying, well, at that point it would be called A17, right? Because it might have like one GPU core disabled or whatever. But yeah, again, who knows? So, but let's talk about in general about the 16 Pro family. Now, we are looking at 16 Pro and 16 Pro Max models. So, no Ultra this year, no Slim this year. There will still be a regular Plus model. So nothing too confusing. What does happen is that the 16 Pro versus the 15 Pro moves from a 6.1-inch display to a 6.3-inch display, and the 16 Pro Max moves from the iPhone 15 Pro Max's 6.7-inch display to a 6.9-inch display. Nice. Those displays would have about the same pixel density, if not exactly the same. The aspect ratio might change ever so slightly, but it seems like the rumors of just an elongated iPhone are not correct. Like those were like very old at this point, but people were saying that the iPhone would not actually increase in width at all. It would only grow taller. But according to like CAD schematics and like rumors about like supposedly the sizing for cases and stuff like that, the display will be both wider and taller. So the aspect ratio will will either not change at all or at least not too much. Now, what's also very important is that these displays will actually be manufactured on Samsung's M14 materials. Now, that does not mean it will be exclusively manufactured by Samsung. LG is still doing a lot of good work here. But if you want to get a small preview of what's possible with that, I encourage you to look at brightness test for the Pixel 9 Pro family, which do run on Super Actua displays that are very bright, and those are already using those M14 materials for OLED production, and they are actually one of the very few phones that get reliably brighter in tests than the iPhone 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max. Somewhere well beyond 2000 nits, like even like 2400 nits on like a 75% bright wide window. So definitely very encouraging results. Even if Apple doesn't dramatically boost brightness, which I still think they will at least benefit from much better efficiency on those panels. And even if they won't improve cooling that much, which very likely they actually will, is they would still be able to also run the display at high brightness for a longer period of time before they have to dim it, as we of course all know from basically every previous iPhone. Next is the processor. Again, we talked about it briefly. Thank you, Jamie, for briefly mentioning it. The 16 Pros are getting the, well, we are calling it AI focus, but let's be honest. Apple has been building neural engines and machine learning accelerators even into the CPU for years now, but I think they will advertise it more as AI focused, and it is going to be called the A18 Pro. Very, very likely, unless they come up with another like naming scheme like Bionic before that. But there is very little like need for that. I would say Apple customers really have gotten used to Pro branding as just meaning better and also accepting to pay higher prices for something that is Pro. So that will be interesting. A18 Pro is rumored to keep the 8 gigs of RAM that we saw on the 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max. What will be interesting is if the RAM is substantially upgraded. For example, the M4 on the iPad Pro utilizes 7500 megatransfers per second LPDDR5X memory or LPDDR5. It depends on where you draw the line between LPDDR5 and 5X. For most, 7500 is 5X, and at that point, you would get a little bit more bandwidth, like 20% more bandwidth versus the A17 Pro chip. Of course, the exact specification of a non-Pro chip, because Jamie Ibrahim also noticed the rumor that they might be on different dies, that will, of course, depend on the actual differences. I cannot give you predictions on if it would even support the same kind of memory, but supposedly the A18 will also come with 8 gigs of memory. It's kind of seen as the bare minimum to be running Apple Intelligence pretty well on device. Like with the large language model using a little over 2 gigabytes. If you consider, of course, background processes, larger applications, how much a camera can use in terms of memory and things like that, that of course becomes very, very demanding on a device with 6 gigs of memory, and it becomes basically impossible for a device with 4 gigs of memory or less. Ben Winnie saying the jump to A17 Pro was huge in neural engine. I don't think A18 would be the same. It doesn't have to be the same. It depends a little on what exactly, like, because there are different bottlenecks for any kind of computation, right? But for example, when you think between the A16 and the A17 Pro, you will find that there isn't extra cache there, right? And the memory bandwidth specification at 6400 megatransfers is the same, right? So even if you have a dramatically faster neural engine, you might still hit certain bottlenecks where, it might be like theoretically 2 times faster. It might do integer 8 especially better. versus just FP16 or 32, right? But and then you might have, oh, this new generation is only 10 or 15% better. Oh, but it has more cache, or it has 20% more bandwidth. Oh, and it has a much faster GPU, right? And those things kind of are very important, especially for a thermally limited SoC design where there's like a lot of bottlenecks across the board. You think A17 Pro was 35? By the way, I do want to correct one thing. When people say T-flop against, for example, Benveni, you're saying the A17 Pro was supposedly 35 T-flops. That's not correct. If we are talking about T-ops at best case, so a trillion or tera operations per second, flop specifically would refer to floating point operations per second. Because we are literally, when we are talking about 35, or like in the case of the M4, 38, we are not talking FP16 or FP32 operations. We're most likely talking about integer 8. Doesn't mean that integer 8 can run exactly 2x of FP16. Scaling isn't always perfect, but you should be talking about tera ops, or just say trillion operations per second. Just dictate it to your device, let it write it out fully. I don't think it would hurt any of us, but if we're gonna be like really cool nerds, we're gonna differentiate between teraflops, which is mostly a metric for GPU compute, versus trillion operations per second, which is a metric of neural engine compute. Specifically because not like neural engines are incapable of floating point operations, but because neural engines are trying to go into integer 8, integer 6, integer 4 operations, and now we aren't talking floating points anymore. It's just a slightly nerdy sidetrack here. Yeah, we don't know if there will be what exact CPU or GPU differences there will be. I still maintain that when people say, oh, DM4 didn't get a big boost, GPU boost over DM3, well, that's because there is a very small gap between November, basically, and May for the M3 to M4. So they use the same GPU architecture, just that the M4 benefits from slightly higher clocks on the more efficient N3E node from TSMC, and it benefits from more bandwidth. I would believe that the A18 Pro actually does have a new generation of GPU versus the A17 Pro. The A17 Pro famously was the first Apple GPU generation that introduced mesh shading, hardware accelerated ray tracing, and dynamic caching. So I would be very inclined to believe that Apple upgrades all of those technologies for the A18 Pro, makes it more efficient, makes it potentially faster, makes it all the more worth utilizing the extra bandwidth, things like that. When it comes to CPU, we don't know if there will be any core count changes. I just wanted to briefly mention this. This came out somewhere around the beginning of the month, around 6th of August. This is a supposed leak of a benchmark result for the upcoming Snapdragon 8 Gen 4. It would be built on TSMC's N3E node. So after a while of Apple using much newer nodes than its competitors, now they would be on pretty much the same node. And what is interesting is that, of course, we do have it roughly matching the single core results of the A17 Pro. The A17 Pro, of course, giving you around 2900, and it giving you close to 9000 multi-core points here on Geekbench 6.3. Famously, the iPhone is like around 7300 here. Yeah, so it would be quite still a nice improvement over the A Gen 3, which sits here around 2200, here around 7,000, depending on the exact implementation in a smartphone. Some get it slightly higher, some a little bit lower. Now, when you look at the cores here, we are looking at 8 cores with different clock speeds. So we don't know if these cores are, well, it's very likely that the performance cores clocking at around 4.1 gigahertz here are actually Orion cores. So pretty much the same cores as we have seen in the Snapdragon X Elite, but now on a newer node, on a newer node. And then there would be 6 cores clocked at around 2.78 gigahertz. So that would be efficiency cores. However, we don't know if those are basically Orion cores but clocked lower, or those are some of like the Cortex A700 cores, or even A5. Well, A500 wouldn't clock that high, but around A700, whatever gen we are at now. So basically, ARM reference designs, clocking a little lower, being much more focused on efficiency, being smaller, having less cache. So that would be kind of what Apple has to compete on. One thing, of course, Apple does have 2 performance cores, and it's very likely that Apple would actually be hitting pretty high clock speeds, given that the iPad Pro runs at 4.4 gigahertz. If we take the iPad Pro's like 3700, 3800 results and even deducted 10%, that would still put the new iPhone at like 33, 3400. So still significantly faster than this. But multi-core would likely very much depend on, well, how much better are the thermals? How much is Apple willing to sacrifice on battery life? Things like that. Jamie, you're asking, I looked at the subcategories for this benchmark, and it does actually outperform A17 Pro by a large margin in most of them. Well, congrats. Can you analyze that for this leak? Is there a link to that? Because I haven't seen one. I just have seen screenshots. Wait, Benvenu, you're saying Apple just announced iPhone event for September. Wait. Is this? Yeah, it's Glowtime. Damn it. I should have gone online a little bit later, guys. Great news. Hey, guys, this is as good an opportunity as any to say, if you're liking this video, please like it. Please subscribe to the channel. Share it out to anybody who you think might enjoy it. Please comment on the video. As you see, I love interacting with the chat. And if you want to give a small donation to celebrate the fact that it's now Glow time, leave a super chat, leave a super sticker, or consider becoming a channel member or a supporter on Patreon. So it's Glow time. Oh, let's just go to apple.com. Whoop. What? Wait, where did Apple put it? On the website. And welcome to Angelica and MarkTech Pro Max supporter saying hi, saying she just turned in after work. That's very, very much appreciated. Wait, where is that? Oh, there it is. Wait, what? Has it not yet upgraded itself on the website? Apple events. Yeah, it's not yet there. Wow, that's interesting. That never happened. Usually, maybe the invite came out a little earlier than they thought. Maybe that happened. Guys, I'm just going to do one little thing here. Bear with me, actually. And please let me know, what do you think? What do you think its glow time actually means? So live streams on September. It's glow time. Sorry, I just wanted to riveting tail chap. Yeah, I just saw it. I just upgraded the name of my stream. I'll later have to edit the thumbnail as well. yeah, like the logos, I think this is just an Apple Intelligence thing, right? Like this is just them saying, oh, you will get like new Siri shown off, because this reminds us of the like 360-degree animation where Siri like takes over the screen. I think Glowtime means Apple logo glowing on MacBook returns. Yeah, bro, I love you, riveting tail chap. I don't think that's happening. I think glow time probably refers to something as simple as like that Siri animation for Apple Intelligence, and maybe like the new gold color for the 15 Pro. Because if we actually go to the rumors, right, not too long ago, I don't think I've actually covered this on the channel, we've had this bronzish color leaking. Credit to Sonny Dickinson here, leaking for the 16 Pro. Now, we don't know if that's how the color actually is going to look like in the real world. A lot of people didn't like how this image specifically looked to them, but yeah, so you can basically expect. I apologize for a second. I started talking without correcting OBS. So I'm gonna make myself smaller again and open this. Sorry, I just had to go to YouTube Studio and change my thing in Chrome. So yeah, this is the bronze goldish color, or previously, like some might have thought it would be like rose gold or whatever. That's obviously not what it is. I'm a little bit colorblind, but not that colorblind. So yeah, maybe that is partially what refers to it. Let's see if it might have come to the website already. Damn, it's really not here on Apple's website. How can that be? So it's Pacific time here. Where's my time? Central European time, 7 p.m. So quite a usual time frame. I'll be actually able to make it. That's awesome. I know how I work on that day, September 9th. Briefly looking into my calendar actually here. September 9th is a Monday. Okay, most of us thought it would be a Tuesday, but it seems like it's actually going to be a Monday event. I think that Apple might have tried to go away from the supposed debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, which is probably happening on September 10th. It seems like Trump might be trying to weasel its way out of the debate. But yeah, Apple might have just said, look, we're going to do it on September 9th. After that, we're not going to deal with the risk of overlapping with a presidential debate, especially one as contentious as this one. So let's see how that basically plays out. Yeah, and of course you can watch it through your regular stuff. Oh, they actually integrated this. Oh yeah, they made it like a very nice website here. That's cool. Yeah, guys, so let me know what you think beyond suggesting that the glowing Apple logo might return on MacBooks or during an event focused on iPhone, Apple Watch, and AirPods. I wonder how Mark Gurman feels about being one day off here, because obviously that's not the greatest feeling in the world. But yeah, it is what it is. Kind of interesting. I guess that it either changed last minute, or Mark Gurman got some wires crossed, maybe got some old info on that. That would be quite fascinating. So, guys, you heard it here. Kind of first breaking news. Apple is having its Glowtime event on September 9th at their usual timing. So I hope you enjoy it. Riveting Tailchap, you're saying you're hopeful AirPods Max get their rightful, well, it wouldn't be an introduction, but like a reintroduction, I guess. Well, at this point, bro, I would just be happy if they finally give it USB-C. You know, there's only so much abuse one can take. yeah, so we've talked about the processor. We talked about like I brought up the Snapdragon 8 Gen 4 for a potential performance comparison. There is the potential that the iPhone might move from a 6-core design to an 8-core design, maybe going from 4 efficiency cores to 6, which of course would give the system a few more threads to work with, might even put some pressure off from the main performance cores, but that is speculation. We haven't heard, unfortunately, any rumors. Well, in either direction, to be honest, for quite a while. I remember some rumors that said it would still be a 6-core CPU. Remember some older rumors saying it would be an 8-core one. So I'm not covering this as rumors, just as potential outcomes. Riveting Tailchip saying, can't wait to see M4 Pro and Max MacBook Pros. Bro, that is not what's happening in September. That is going to be for an October event. I warn you, don't psych yourself out. We are going to talk about like potential improvements for M4 Max and stuff like that, but don't expect to see them at this September event. Certainly not now, knowing that it's this early in September. Like maybe if it was like very late in September, I could have seen a chance that Apple basically unifies the iPhone event with a Mac event, but now it basically screams to me that one would be iPhone, Apple Watch, AirPods, and then the other one would be Max, and I would say probably like new iPad mini, something like that. Maybe the cheap iPad as well. Yeah, so that was the kind of like the schedule that I would expect for this year, and I would expect a lot of talk about like Apple Intelligence and things like that. I just wouldn't expect those to all come at the same time. Riveting tells you, you're saying you're rusty and off your Apple game. Well, brother, subscribe to the channel, become a channel member, so your direct support encourages me more to inform you more. That's how it works. One hand wash the other here. No, just kidding. Just join my streams a little bit more often. You'll be informed. I try to keep the actual information pretty compact. I know my streams are long, but usually if you go to the exact timestamp where I mentioned that the new topic starts, you can get the good gist in about 10 to 15 minutes. Kind of like a regular like video essay on YouTube. You don't have to necessarily watch the entire stream, or I would just recommend put me on in the background while you work out or something like that, while you clean up, and then you'll enjoy yourself. And you will learn. So those are the colors. So this bronzish, goldish color would be a replacement for titanium blue. If you ask me, one of the major reasons why I probably won't be upgrading my 15 Pro Max this year is because there's no replacement for titanium blue. Apple is not replacing it in the lineup, and nothing is replacing it in my heart. Certainly not this bronze color. Now, when we come to more and more changes across the entire lineup, a new one, and I believe Ben Vinny asked that at the beginning of the stream, like, where do I see potential for exclusive features, maybe AI-focused ones? I could see them being paired with the capture button. Maybe the capture button does some AI-focused tricks or whatever. But basically, it would be kind of like your regular capture button on like your professional camera. You click on it, of course, to take a photo. You press on it longer to focus. You can supposedly swipe up and down on this to zoom in or out. So that would be quite a versatile camera. Supposedly the entire iPhone 16 family actually gets it, plus the iPhone 16 will be getting the action button from the 15 Pro and Pro Max. So the 16 actually gets 2 new buttons because the base models were previously losing out on the action button. But now all of that is remedied, and you now get an even more advanced extra buttons. So at the time when Google is like struggling to put the power button in the right spot on the Pixel 9 Pro, Apple is like doubling and tripling down on additional buttons. Who would have ever seen that coming? I certainly wouldn't have. So that's quite insane. Cameras are getting better across the board. There will be a larger main camera, still 48 megapixels, but a larger sensor, a larger ultra wide camera with also a higher resolution from 12 megapixels to 48. The 5x tetra prism telephoto camera of the 15 Pro Max will make its way to the smaller 16 Pro, but it won't get any supposedly big improvements on the 16 Pro Max. There were some rumors about it getting like an ultra zoom at 10x or something like that, but there are no rumors right now. And it seems like Apple just wants to double down on the logistics and supply chain for the Tetra Prism components from LG Innotek this year, probably bring down production prices a little and make sure that it fits in both the smaller 16 Pro and the larger 16 Pro Max. And then maybe the year after, they introduce some crazier zoom, maybe variable zoom on maybe the 17 Pro and Pro Max, maybe only on the Pro Max. But this year, the camera you knew from the 16 Pro Max for telephoto, that's the one you're also getting on 16 Pro and 16 Pro Max. If there are any zoom improvements on the iPhone 16 Pro family, that will come from the image signal processor and maybe some AI stuff, not from an actually better, like physically better camera. Better low light photography that will come from the larger sensors and a new image signal processor, and there will be a bigger battery and improved thermals. You can see the small but still meaningful battery capacity increases. The 16 Pro gets a percentage wise larger increase versus the 15 Pro, in comparison to the 16 Pro Max versus the 15 Pro Max. Supposedly the battery will have a stainless steel casing to help with heat dissipation, and there will be a new graphite thermal pad on the A18 processor to help it deal with heat dissipation on the actual processor. Benveni is saying, I think the desert titanium will be a fire color. I actually agree. I think the image is probably iffy. I still don't know if those are supposed to be real iPhones or just iPhone dummies. They kind of look like dummies to me. I'm not sure. But yeah, I actually believe that, yeah, if Apple makes a bronze goldish color, I'm 100% inclined to believe that they will actually nail it out of the park. Apple can't make a black Pro version. What do you mean? They do have space black and it will get darker and darker. Here it is. Or am I missing something what you were saying, Benveni? Connectivity improvements. There will be a new Wi-Fi modem. Will be a new 5G modem, an X75 modem that's also in the latest Android flagships with support for 5G Advanced. Apple will still be one of the very few mobile companies offering cellular connectivity, satellite emergency connectivity, which Google now introduced on the Pixel 9 Pro and 9 Pro XL, or the entire Pixel 9 family to be correct. Which is weird because Samsung actually makes the modem inside the Pixel 9, but they don't offer that functionality on their own phones because their flagship, the Galaxy S24 Ultra, uses a Snapdragon modem, and that modem doesn't have that functionality. So there are cheaper devices that actually would have had access to that capability because they use a Samsung modem, don't end up getting it, which is absolutely crazy. iPhone 16 Pro and Pro Max will get Wi-Fi 7, and you can imagine that the 16 basically stays one gen behind. It would get like Wi-Fi 6E versus the current iPhone 15 having like Wi-Fi 6. We don't know if there will be other changes like Bluetooth, even there, like Bluetooth 5.4 is the standard. It's not really that much better than 5.3 or 5.2. If you think about like USB-C data transfer speeds, maybe the base iPhones finally get better because they are currently stuck at USB 2 speeds at 480 megabits per second, while the Pro iPhones support up to 10 gigabyte per second. So maybe we will see some improvements there on the base models, but a lot of this is speculation. Rumors on those things are either sparse or non-existent in general. So let's see if we can finally nail it on Apple's website. Yes, there is the Apple event thing. I'll make myself a little smaller actually. You'll find that it's on September 9th at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And all you see is that glowy Apple logo. You can see some colors. Whether or not any of these colors refer to like the 5 colors of the regular iPhone 16 lineup, I don't know. Whether it's all about the Apple Intelligence things, I don't know. It seems to me that way. However, there is one thing that I could see happening that this could be referring to, which there might be some like glow up stuff in like maybe powered by Apple Intelligence through things like the capture button. Maybe Apple like really gives you like, oh, now you look 10 times better on your photos in this completely artificial way. I would hate it, but unfortunately that's sometimes what the market asks for. So there isn't actually that much to interpret here. Sometimes they have like several logos actually. This time they only have this one with the continuous animation going back and forth. You can of course let me know what you think, what is likely here or not. We of course talked about all the different iPhone 16 Pro changes. Larger batteries, better cooling, better cameras, maybe not every single camera improved, capture button, action button for the regular 16 model, new Pro color instead of blue titanium, new chip, maybe 2 dies, one A18 going in the A16, one A18 Pro going in the 16 Pro, definitely all focused on AI, larger screens, brighter screens, in general, better, more efficient screens. No big like design changes though, unless you count like that bronze color. So a nice upgrade, definitely nothing too crazy, but also definitely nothing disappointing, at least to me. Now, we can argue about the regular 16 model and the fact that it would still lack features such as ProMotion, but yeah, that's kind of par for the course. We know that the regular 17 model is where Apple will give ProMotion to its cheaper iPhones. For now, it will stay iPhone Pro exclusive. So that finishes about it here. Unfortunately, I cannot say too much to the actual invitation, except for it being kind of pretty and kind of indicative of Apple Intelligence. We are about an hour into the stream. To anybody who is watching, for one, thank you. And I do want to encourage you, if you haven't yet, please like, please subscribe to the channel, share the video, comment on it. You can see I love engaging with the chat. And of course, if you have some money over, please consider donating directly in the form of a super chat or a super sticker. Every small donation is very much appreciated and being put right back into the channel. Of course, you can do it through a super sticker, super chat, or you can become a permanent supporter as a channel member or a supporter over on Patreon. The link for that is in the description of this channel. Of course, all support is appreciated, but I do want to give a shout out to those more direct models of supporting this channel and helping our community grow. That's neither here nor there, because there is still, of course, more months in the year except for September. And we are very, very likely, and Riveting Tail Chip, you've talked a lot about it. I apologize that it unfortunately will likely not be happening in September, but we are very likely getting new Macs in maybe October or November, but definitely before the end of the year. And those will be powered by M4 family processors. So that would include the M4 chip that is found inside the current iPad Pro, but of course also like M4 Pro and M4 Max variants. However, one big change kind of builds upon a complaint that many people have had for years with base configurations of MacBooks, Mac Minis, iMacs, and that is the base version of memory that comes inside those devices is currently sitting at 8 gigs of memory. On the M3 Max, this is 4400 mega transfers per second RAM. On the iPad Pro, it's 7500 mega transfers per second RAM. One thing that we have found while like deconstructing the iPad Pro is that supposedly physically it should have 12 gigs of RAM inside because it has two 6 gigabyte modules instead of two 4 gigabyte modules, as we find on other M2 or M3 Macs. But only 8 gigabytes are seen by the OS, and you can upgrade to 16 gigabytes. So you can take it as you want. Maybe Apple is using like 6 gigabyte modules that have to be slightly binned and only 4 gigabytes of them are active. Or maybe Apple just completely artificially disables 2 gigabyte per module for whatever reason, maybe to get more people to pay more money to get the 1 terabyte model that has also like more RAM. But yeah, this is the situation we are currently in. On the Mac side, where you can just upgrade memory, while on the iPad you kind of have to upgrade memory together with storage, you have to currently pay $200. If you actually look in other currencies, it's often substantially more than $200 for 8 gigabytes of extra memory, going from 8 gigabytes to 16, and then from 16 to 24. And then once you go to higher models, the price per gigabyte actually drops a little. So that helps. But unfortunately, if you are in like the lower price segment, this is where you have to pay abhorrent prices and potentially add like 20% of the actual device cost just to get to a nice amount of RAM. Now, this is also coming from Mark Gurman, who of course has brought us phenomenal tech leaks, like the fact that iPhone 16 will come on September 10th. Oops. This is the September 10th. This is Apple Watch Series 10. But again, he was off by just one day, and he has been reliable in the past. So let's for one believe him. He says that there are 4 Macs in the testing with an M4 chip, and they all come with either 16 or 32 gigabytes of unified memory. Now, to me, it would make a lot of sense if Apple maybe increased the base price by $100, maybe even $200, and gave us 16 gigabyte standard, but also 512 gigabyte standard. Currently, if you actually want 16 gigabytes and 512 gigabytes inside the MacBook Air, you have to pay $400 extra. Now, when you just look at the MacBook Pro with the 14-inch version, which for now it seems like the MacBook Air would not actually be part of the upgrade later this year, but more sometime early to mid next year. So we are talking about the $1,599 14-inch MacBook Pro. And in that case, to me, it makes sense that Apple might just bump it to $1,699 and gives it 16 gigs of memory. And then maybe they will finally find some love in their heart, introduce upgrade costs. Maybe by like half, which currently the upgrade from 16 gigabytes to 32 would be an insane $400. Maybe Apple drops it to 200. I kind of would be inclined to believe that they would more make it cost $300, at which point you would actually, if you calculate it, the 16 gigabyte model actually becomes $100 cheaper than it was before, while the 32 gigabyte model becomes $200 cheaper, right? Because it's cheaper to get 16 gigabytes, and then it's cheaper to upgrade to 32. If Apple goes completely insane and prices 16 gigabytes as the same $15.99 and then halves the upgrade price to 32 gigabytes, that would make this model $200 less expensive and the 32 gigabyte models an insane $400 less expensive. So I just wouldn't recommend you people stay a little bit like put a pinch of salt or a mountain of salt on it. Like I would believe the base configurations change, but I also would believe that there will be some price adjustments with that. The Gaming God saying, I'm so excited. Are you getting the new phone? For one, thank you. I don't think I've read your messages in the past. I'm probably getting the 16 Pro Max for review purposes. I'm still not sure if I'm going to keep it because I'm running the 15 Pro Max with 1 terabyte of storage. I'm super happy with its camera, its performance. Here in Europe, I'm not even getting Apple Intelligence, so I don't know. There's a small chance that my mom will hand down her phone to my grandma, like her 13 Pro Max, and then she would take my 15 Pro Max, and then I would buy the 16 Pro Max. But I'm not sure if that will actually happen. However, I'm very, very likely buying it and keeping it for review purposes, unless I'm way too late on the website and it says to me that, like, oh, the new iPhone is only coming in a month, and at that point, any review by me would be pretty useless, and then I most likely wouldn't order it. So that's kind of my view on it. But it could change. There could be some like revolutionary things that absolutely change my mind. There could be giant surprises, but in the current state, it's not that I don't think that the 16 Pro is not exciting. If I had a 14 Pro, I would very, very likely be upgrading to the 16 Pro. But because I came from a 13 Pro, already have a 15 Pro, I'm kind of inclined to say, oh, I would like to wait for the 17 Pro, where every single camera is new, including the selfie camera and the telephoto, while the main and ultra wide are getting improved this year. 12 gigs of RAM, maybe potentially like a 2-nanometer processor. So a lot of exciting stuff, right? Sometimes Apple does a lot of stuff to just give us more value. And the thing they actually did that for me with the 15 Pro Max is they actually adjusted Euro prices by like 10% almost. So that meant I could get my highest end configuration for below 2,000 euros. Now, granted, it's still by far and away not cheap, but it's much better than it was before. And yeah, so I don't know. Like, it's the same thing as when we are talking about the MacBook, right? It's like, again, more RAM would be great. More simple RAM configurations would be great, because I never liked the idea of like the base M chip having 3 RAM configurations between 8, 16, and 24. I always believed it should have 12 and 24. Now it seems Apple is upgrading at least the MacBook Pro to 16. But again, there's also the Mac Mini, there's the iMac. I don't know if Mark Gurman also says that all of those will also, because 16 gigabytes right now would be a huge upgrade for the Mac Mini, because the Mac Mini right now starts at $599 with an M2 chip. Could you imagine if it comes with 16 gigabytes at the same price and an M4 chip? It would be like the best value PC out there, because it would have like incredible single core performance and things like that. But yeah, but it's similar to the iPhone, right? If Apple does something crazy and maybe makes 512 gigabytes of storage standard, so it's way cheaper to get, maybe I would then also upgrade just to show Apple, oh, I really appreciate those pricing moves. Here, have some money, oh, richest company in the world. But I doubt that that will happen. I think that storage configs and stuff will be actually very similar. Um, yeah, so part of the rumor is that 16 gigabytes on the MacBook. Well, I always talk about the MacBook Pro, but supposedly all these other Macs uh, might be the new standard because Apple deems that it's necessary for Apple Intelligence. Don't forget that macOS has a higher overhead than iOS. So if Apple decides at some point that like 8 or even maybe 12 gigabytes are enough on iOS for Apple Intelligence, on macOS, where the operating system itself might be more demanding, but you're also more likely to be running more tabs in Safari, more apps in the background. This is where Apple might say, well, we might have wanted to jump to 12 gigabytes. We might do that on maybe like the MacBook Air, but on every Mac that is like a little bit more productivity focused, something like a MacBook Pro, or maybe even like all desktop Macs, here 16 gigabytes just makes more sense. With the Snapdragon X Elite laptops, right now 16 gigabyte has kind of become the standard, pushing up from 8 in the past. Supposedly, Intel's latest chips would also come in 16 or 32 gigabyte configs. And they might actually be pretty well priced, so maybe Apple sees the need to compete with that. But yeah, that's kind of course, where we're at. And again, I've already outlined how the pricing structure might change or might not change. Apple could still demand absurd upgrade prices for the memory and just increase the base config. I don't think that would be very smart because I think that would incentivize a lot of people to stay on the lower configuration and just say, oh, you know what? I might just upgrade in 5 or 6 years. I'm not going to spend $400 more to get 32 gigabytes right away. I might wait until that becomes either cheaper or kind of standard in the lineup a few years from now. That's at least my way of thinking. Apple, of course, has like way more in-depth analysis on consumer behavior. So who knows what happens? Yeah, but that's kind of it. Again, it's just one thing from Mark Gurman. Don't expect, of course, this at the Glowtime event in September. Expect that maybe in October or November. We don't know if storage would also change. Again, part of it is that we aren't really talking about the MacBook Air because the MacBook Air is not coming at the end of this year, but sometime next year. And but of course, on something like the Mac Mini, Apple might do something weird, like give us 16 gigs of RAM, but 256 gigs of storage in the base configuration. Just say, well, you know what? It's a desktop Mac. If you really want a lot more storage in it, just connect to it an external SSD, and you will be fine. So again, a lot of things to consider. I don't try to always give the most optimistic outlook because I don't want you guys to be disappointed, but that's kind of the news of the day. Yeah, that about ends this video. Again, I didn't expect to be overseeing the actual announcement of this event. Let's see what this here says. Yep, iPhone 16 event for September 9th. It's Glowtime. Again, if we go to Apple's website, not much has changed here. It's a pretty glowing logo. I'll update my thumbnail right away so it actually says September 9th. And I already updated my title, so I hope that helps you guys find the video later on. And before I just say goodbye, I want to give a last shout out to you liking the video, subscribing to the channel, of course, commenting even after the video has already been uploaded. Let me know what you think. And as always, if you want to support this channel directly while I'm live, you can leave a small super chat or a super sticker as a little donation. As I always say, every money gets reinvested right back into the channel. And beyond that, you can also become a channel member here on YouTube or a supporter over on Patreon. All help is appreciated, as it is when you just watch those videos. So thank you so much for tuning in today. It was a lot of fun. It's definitely great that I can now be talking about an official date for the iPhone 16 release, and I think we'll have a lot of fun talking about it and speculating about it and analyzing upcoming rumors and leaks that will be coming in the next few days before the actual event. And as always, let me know what you would like to see me cover next. And until next time, this is Mark Tech tuning out.